Welcome to our quick 10 tips for Sage accounting teams webinar. So today we have some experts from two of our most prized ISV relationships. So from Quadient, we have our Senior Channel Development Manager, Dylan Hume, and Cameron Duncan, who is an account executive, is going to share a lot from the product side. And then from Avalara side, we have Cam Murphy. He is our Senior Strategic Alliance Manager at Avalara. And then Ronnie Fritz, who is also going to show us live in the product. So from our agenda, we are going to go through those insights, tips, and tricks from Quadient, and then see some of those tips and tricks come alive in Sage AP Automation. And then the same from Avalara. We'll see some insights, tips, and tricks from what they know about tax compliance, and then a live demo of the ECM solution that is pretty fresh to the market. And after that, we'll go through any questions and answers you have. This is a prime time to do it with these experts. So we'll give a little time at the end for that, but go ahead and ask them throughout the webinar, and we will collect them for addressing in that session. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So Quadient, Cam, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to meet you. My name's Cam. I am, like was just mentioned, an account executive over here at Quadient AP. So I work with clients every single day to manage their workflows, see how automation can help. So Quadient AP, it's a leading accounts payable automation company. So we're trusted by over 2,100 organizations worldwide. Our solution streamlines your AP processes by reducing manual data entry, cutting costs, eliminating risk, and enabling remote work. So with Quadient AP, you get unlimited user seats for your entire AP team. We get centralized AP processing across multiple locations or legal entities, and due to our online access, it's quick access to any AP document with complete remote transparency. So with over a decade of experience, our adaptability sets us apart from the ever-changing technology landscape. One of the first drivers here is cost, of course, always important. So it's one of the most quantifiable factors that you'll use when building up a business case. So by substantially decreasing the time that you're spending on data entry or managing approvals, you can bring your average invoice process down from $15 to $5 or less. So if you process, say, 500 invoices per month, that's an annual savings of around 60K. So business case is now checked off. But something I'll get into a little bit later is you need to plan for what you're going to do with the associated time savings, which can account up to 300K over the course of a year. Now, most companies aren't looking to cut staff, which is a wonderful weight off of my conscience. So instead, you'll need to identify other areas where you can reallocate your extra time. Some examples might be a finance special project or vendor analysis and management. These are things that some teams often can't find the time for. Next slide, please. So our first big tip is a big one. So try a paperless solution, but why? So according to Level Research, 71% of companies point to manual data entry and related process inefficiencies as their top pain point. So what that tells us is manual data entry sucks, and most people know it. So why is this such a big tip? Well, a lot of finance professionals are making important business decisions based on inaccurate financials. And according to Blackline Research, an incredible 41% of finance pros blame manual data entry for those dodgy numbers. Sage research has shown that accountants spend up to 57% of their day entering data, leaving little room for anything else. And here's one final stat for you. Despite all of this, 86% of small market enterprises still enter their invoice data by hand. So trying paperless is definitely worth being our #1 tip here. Next slide, please. So our tip #2 is organize data from anywhere, and it's also paired with tip #1. So by centralizing data on the cloud, you ensure it can be accessed anytime, anywhere. So good automation software integrates seamlessly with your accounting system. So all necessary information is always at your fingertips. Automation solutions also enable you to set up custom approval workflows. So invoices are instantly routed to the right approver, and automated reminders ensures timely send-offs. And I'm sure each person listening here can think of one approver who would benefit from these reminders. And overall, this significantly reduces waiting time and boosts efficiency. Next slide, please. So tip number 3 is streamlining your workflow, especially your approval processes can significantly enhance efficiency. If you've spent countless hours knocking on doors and chasing signatures, I talk to people every day and you are not alone. Our survey of over 200 AP professionals revealed that they spend an average of 20% of their time managing approvals. Now combine this with manual data entry, you're looking at a staggering 77% of time consumed by these manual tasks. Complex approval processes exacerbate delays, often taking up to 45 days to process an invoice, driving the average cost of an invoice over $15. Now, these delays can lead to late payment fees, missed early payment discounts, strained vendor relationships, and I'm sure you can think of more. Streamlined workflows are essential for mitigating these issues and improving overall productivity. Next slide, please. And now it's time for tip number 4, enhance your fraud protection. And by this point, we've all heard of AI, and advancements in AI are wonderful and have empowered AP teams to combat fraud on multiple levels. So our AI systems are trained on historical data from invoices, purchase orders, and receipts to establish rules and norms for identifying legitimate transactions. This helps spot potentially fraudulent behavior. And machine learning quickly detects anomalies and deviations from standard behavior, serving as early warning signs of potential fraud. This technology can recognize suspicious patterns such as duplicate payments or changes to payment details and flag them for further investigation. Over time, AI becomes more proactive in predicting fraudulent activities, learning from historical data and past fraud instances to help teams take preemptive action. AI systems also enable complete or partial automation, meaning they can flag suspicious activities for manual review, block payments, or changes to vendor details, or even investigate these investigations autonomously. Next slide. And finally, our last tip is maintaining strong vendor partners. So establishing a solid workflow ensures that invoices move seamlessly from step to step, providing visibility and preventing any from being missed. This means to prepare payment batches on demand and ensure your vendors are paid on time. By working together, us as partners, we help you maintain a strong relationship with your vendors as well. Our last tip, it also has to do with maintaining those strong vendor relationships with everyone. So to help implement a strong tech stack that encourages the maintenance of vendor relationships, which pays beautifully to our fellow presenters over at Avalara. So Quadient AP, we're going to help centralize your invoices and push them into Sage, and that's where Avalara can also work their magic. And together, we'll both be able to help grow your business. Next slide.
And now you'll show them.
And now the fun part. Yeah, so we're just gonna pass the presenter view over to me, bear with me, and then I get to show you a quick little demo of what our tool looks like. Voila, let's confirm you can see my screen, please.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So one thing I really want to drill in is that this is a browser. So every single person on your team can access this at any point in time as long as they have access to the internet. So whether that's on the browser, they can access this whole tool from their phone. And in addition to that, we have an app. So a lot of this functionality is possible from the app as well. So bringing invoices into our system will be as automated as possible. So any invoices that come in by email are automatically going to get pulled into this new tab. So on the left-hand side here, we have 4 modules. We have our invoices, we have our payments, our purchase orders, and expenses. Expenses are like employee reimbursements or credit card reconciliation. Everyone has invoices, but the payments, POs, and expenses are all dependent on your workflow and what you need. So it's almost a la carte. Up here is a life cycle of an invoice, starting with new, and it finishes in the archived. So just back to pulling these invoices in by email, we're going to create forwarding rules, pull these invoices in automatically. For the ones that come in by paper, use the app, take a photo of it, it'll push it in, or do a good old-fashioned scan and drag and drop it into the system. Once it's in, first thing we want to do is take away that manual data entry. So our tool is automatically going to start coding a lot of details, all this header information, invoice number, vendor, payment terms. I'll create a due date based on the payment terms and the date on the invoice, as well as all the information down here. Now we can integrate with nearly every single Sage is out there. So I checked the people on this call, every single person listening to the call, we can integrate already with your financial system. So we're gonna pull over a lot of lists. So things like your vendor, that's a list being pulled straight from Sage. And down here, your GL codes. This is where our tool is going to start to be able to code these invoices for you automatically. So the more that you use the tool, the faster and smarter it gets. Examples here are standard gadget and branded hats. They already have GLs because we've received this description from this vendor in the past. So it's automatically assigned the same GL that was assigned last time. Whereas bike shifters here, this is brand new. So first time we receive it, click the GL. It's gonna pull that full list of GLs straight from Sage, select the one we want, and next time we receive that same description, it's gonna automatically code down to that one as well. Now, maybe you have something that you need to code that's not listed up here. We can modify these to pull separate lists from Sage that maybe need to be coded for your invoices. Once all this information looks good, submit for approval. And in the backend, we're going to create rules. So these approval structures are part of the onboarding process where we sit down and say, hey, how do you know where to send each invoice? Multiple legal entities, no worries. You can select which one you want. These are all the rules for this specific legal entity. Invoice comes in for them, and it can be routed based on multiple criteria. So org unit, that's our fancy word for department. So maybe there's an invoice for a certain department, that can be a trigger, or maybe a GL account, or maybe it's things like the vendor, or whether there is some inventory, or whether it has a PO match, or whether there's a variance of the invoice compared to that PO. If it checks any combination of those boxes back to our unlimited users, all your approvers are here. We can create an approval structure. So it's a 3-tiered approval, group people together. And then I hope that everyone here is great at their approving because we also have some analytics where you can see all of the users and how many invoices are sitting there for each one. So Tom Bean here has 10 invoices from more than 2 weeks. Approvals be done within the browser or from the app. It's all approved. We're now going to line up in the export tab. And this is where we are going to, without any clicks, push these invoices straight into Sage. And finally, we're going to store these invoices for you as well. So we talked to a lot of people that have filing cabinets or maybe a Google Drive or a SharePoint or something like that. You can keep that if you want, but we are also going to store these invoices for you. And in the middle here, we have a filter bar that's apparent on every single tab. And this is where you can create filters based on which legal entity you want to see, or maybe multiple, on things like department or any other aspect of that invoice. And if you have any frequent filters that you want to see, click that ABC Furniture. That's one of the sample vendors we have in our system. Create a report in form of a PDF or a CSV. And once that's prepared, we're going to be able to see a summary of all the invoices within that filter. Download that, and now we can see all the information that was pushed into Sage. And scroll through, find the ones that we want, or click on the number on the side. And then we'll be able to see a copy of the invoice, all the coding history, as well as who approved that invoice. Now that's a real quick summary of what we can do here. There's a lot more details I'd love to get into, but time permitting, maybe let's have a chat, talk one-on-one, and dedicate an hour to see what we can do, and maybe go through some of these other modules as well. And on that, I will pass the sharing back over.
And thank you so much, Cam. I just love all the filtering. I think that's incredible. We are going to get to a cool offer that's exclusive to our DSD audience here, right, Cam?
Exactly. So everyone who has had the opportunity to attend the webinar today, we are going to be offering you a 50% off the Sage integration with our tool. So a little spoiler, it's only $5K to get integrated with Sage. So we are going to give everyone that downloads this toolkit 50% off. Now there is one stipulation. We want to give you guys a little bit of time to obviously go through the proper process. But if you want to get onboarded by September 30th, that's when this discount will be available. So that is $2,500 worth of savings. So go ahead, grab your phones, scan that good old QR code, and it should open up a link. And this will also be available afterwards as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, and now to our Cameron from Avalara.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Cameron, great job. I appreciate the time today and the opportunity to talk to you and give you some tips and tricks on tax compliance. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Next slide. So for some of you, this may be a refresher, or for some who don't know who Avalara is, here's some key facts and figures. I think a lot of times the conception is when it comes to sales tax, Avalara is the go-to in the United States or domestically, but we have a global presence. We're in over 200 different countries. We started operations, started business in 2004. We have 17 different offices, and I think we're actually up to close to now 5,000 employees. And we have pre-written language to not only core ERPs like Sage, but also to over 1,200 different integrations as well. We handle millions and millions of certificates and documents that we manage throughout the year through our solution. And we have and do more than 5 million returns prepared every year. So definitely a lot going on. I love to get into kind of show you what else we can do and how we can help. So next slide. So 5 sales tax tips for your business. I think a lot of us, as we go through our manual processes, a lot of times sales tax compliance is always on the back burner. It's not a revenue generator for the business. A lot of times folks say, it's been something I've been meaning to get around to. But a lot of times, if we are in a manual and not a SaaS solution like Avalara and compliant, there's a lot of risk factors that come into play. So you need to know where your economic nexus laws are, where you may have triggered some of that, and some of the common mistakes that auditors will come in and find and uncover and potentially assess any kind of penalties or fines. And then if you do automate your tax compliance, Avalara can work with over 13,000 different tax jurisdictions. So if you're in Texas and you're procuring something or shipping to different states, multiple states, there's a lot of different taxes. They overlap. It's not just kind of finite borders where, I'm in this postal code, I'm shipping to this zip code, this is the flat rate. A lot of times there can be up to 7, 8, 9 different tax rates that have to be added and calculated. So we can definitely help manage over 13,000 of those. And then you can save up to 50% on your tax automation. And again, Avalara is well beyond just the sales calc when it comes to the transactional tax on an invoice, calculating that, making sure it's correct. We do also manage exemption certificates for products. So if there's questions of, gosh, we're shipping into Texas, is this product have a 20% exemption and we should only be charging 80% and collecting and remitting that instead of 100? How do we know? How do we manage that? That's something that Avalara can help with through our exemption certificate management, which we'll see a demo in a little bit. So again, we can do over 1,600 different exemption certificates and forms, in addition to the sales calculation as well. So there's some tips for your business. Next slide. So in 2001 alone, we did over 123,000 different types of updates to the rates and taxes in the US and Canada. So if you can imagine, states, municipalities, they're constantly trying to keep customers like yourself on your toes so that they can come in and do an audit and really see what you actually calculated, collected, and remitted to them. So they're always thinking that there's a gap of what they received and what they actually should be getting. And a lot of times those are changing by the hour. I mean, you can see 123,000 updates for taxability in US and Canada, and then also holiday rule updates. So it's constantly changing. How do we manage that? How do we look at the tax rate table and say we're correct? So really what Avalara allows you all to do is have a solution that's in real time in the cloud that works with Sage to make sure that these calculations are correct and accurate. And if anybody comes by and pokes around and wants to pull this invoice, what was collected and remitted to the state, you have it all there in a nice dashboard ready at your fingertips to show them. So definitely something that we can help with. Next slide. So again, we have over 13,000 different tax jurisdictions. We're going to go into really kind of a differentiator for us that sets us apart with our product, with not just relying on a postal code. So Kimberly, next slide, please. So here's an example of a place in Colorado where if we were to rely on simply, I'm going to be shipping to Greenwood Village, the postal code is 80111, okay, I'm going to apply 7%. You can see by the different colors there how many different rates apply with just within that area. You can see it for all the other ones as well, for Inglewood and for Centon. So how do we manage that and make sure that we are going down literally to the rooftop and saying, out of 12 different tax rates that could apply, these 7 are the ones that we need to add up and calculate. Avalara is one of the only companies and an original company that goes to the latitude and longitude, so really zeroes down into that rooftop and says, out of these 12 different applicable tax rates, 7 are the ones that you need to accurately calculate, collect, and remit. And so this is something that really sets us apart and allows us to really make sure that we are super accurate on what we're calculating for the tax. So you invoice somebody, you have now the peace of mind knowing that you have a tool where you can really set it, forget it, and focus on other areas of the business. So next slide, please. So tip number 1, know your nexus. What is nexus? It is literally a trigger that is now the customer, the burden is on the customer to collect and remit to the state. So there's different types of nexus. There was a ruling in 2018 where South Dakota won against Wayfair, and Wayfair's argument was, well, we don't have any brick and mortar or physical place within South Dakota, so we don't have to collect or remit to the state. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of South Dakota and said, well, look, you're generating business and collecting revenue from residents in South Dakota, but you're not paying the taxes on it. So it really moved now from just, do we have physical nexus? Do I have a brick and mortar within this area, within the state? Okay, I don't. Okay, I don't have to collect. To, oh my goodness, now we have areas of economic nexus. There's click-through, affiliate. If you have people on the road and you're doing trade shows, anytime you're really stimulating the economic status, you have now a nexus trigger and obligation to collect or remit to the state. So you can see the difference here of moving from left to right, where the seller has a physical presence, which was the old way of really triggering it, to now you exceed or set levels of sales or transactions. They're all different for every state. Some, like California, says, hey, it's $100,000 in revenue or 200 transactions. Texas is different, Florida is different, Colorado is different. How do we manage all that? Avalara has a dashboard that when you start to literally start to trigger nexus because of your transactions or the amount of revenue you're generating, it starts to light up these states orange to let you know that you have risk now that you need to mitigate, and you're close to collecting, having to collect and remit to the state by triggering nexus. So we could get into all the different types. I mean, this alone is a very long conversation, but you can see here some of the different types of nexus that you may have already triggered for your business. Next slide. Tip number 2, really just knowing where your audit triggers are at. You can see here there's different types of ways that you can trigger an audit, or if someone comes on site and looks through what's going on, they can find different things here. A nexus discovery, whether or not you have it or not, you're registered in that state. You have referrals and audits from vendors. You have public information, things that you're doing out at trade shows. You're on a seller's website. You're using the internet. You have fulfillment by Amazon, or you're using a marketplace to generate revenue. All of these are common audit triggers that now you may be eligible for an audit that may have penalties and fines assessed to you and the business. So next slide. All right, so you want to make sure that you double check your tax obligations by location. What's the best way to do that? You're probably sitting there going, my gosh, we have so much. How do I even wrap my hands around this and figure out where we have exposure and where we have risk? We have a sales tax risk assessment that is literally a health check for your business. So we have comprehensive questions that we go through, and we really just provide an assessment of where your business is at, what requirements and what challenges, and how do you get compliant to make sure that you don't have any more risk in these states, and you've mitigated that. So our premium sales risk tax assessment, we are going to go through a promo later for it, but it's normally a $4,500 value. And we have a promotion for those that are in attendance today to go through it. So next slide, please. 5 steps to managing sales tax compliance. You can see, where do I have it? Where do I need to register? How do I calculate, track, and remit all that? Avalara does that through our Nexus study, our licensing, AvaTax, obviously for the sales calc. We're going to demo on exemption certificate management and then the returns as well. Next slide. And our last tip is just through exemption certificate management. So really boosting compliance. You have now these documents that are readily available in the cloud to make sure that we were providing product exemptions and calculating it at the correct level. We'll go through that. Next slide. And then here's our full suite, our compliance cloud, from licensing, tax research, certificates, calculation, returns, and reporting, and then any kind of global as well. So we're going to get into the fun part now. I'm going to be turning over to Ronnie Fritz. He's our senior solutions consultant. He's going to go through our exemption certificate management via demo.
Thank you very much. And just let me know when you can see my screen. Should be right away.
Gotcha.
Perfect. So what we're looking at is the Avalara portal, sometimes known as our dashboard or the client user interface. This is essentially where all of your calculations are created with respect to any of the Sage products that are in use for ERP purposes. Inside of here, basically, we archive all of the transactions. Those transactions are then immediately available in all of our reports and in our returns module. You can see the exemption component is within the purview of the same portal and dashboard as well. And for those of you who have ever looked at Avalara like a long time ago in the past, know that the exemption certificate management component used to be called Cert Capture. And so the Cert Capture environment was simply a different dashboard, but it was integrated into our overall service. That's now all in one dashboard, in one portal, and it makes it much, much easier to use. And quite frankly, the interface has also been changed to make it easier, so you don't need to have a degree in rocket science to be able to function within this environment. All of your transactions that are coming from any Sage product, if they are associated to a client who's exempt, that would be seen by our tax engine, and that actual calculation would be exempted from tax. We would record that for the purposes of reporting in your returns, but the action of exempting it comes from this part of the portal. Inside of here, there are fundamentally functions that are already now integrated into your Sage product. So the aspect of adding a customer, which in the past, I'm just clicked on the button there, which in the past was required for you to come in here and manually do, that can be done directly from your Sage product. Being able to view the status of that particular client, like if we look at this client here, and we look at this status screen that they have an exemption certificate for Texas, that's now available directly within your ERP product. So you can click a button and say, hey, what's the status of my client? Do they have an exemption certificate? Is it valid or not? If you'd like to see the details of that, you can also see that directly from your Sage product. Okay, so those are the improvements, I'm going to say the enhancements that have occurred with respect to how that works within any of the Sage products, but it has always been there in essence in terms of the way that our product works. From your perspective, the other parts that are inside of that product as well, inside of your Sage product as well, are the ability to directly from Sage, any Sage product, request the exemption certificate from the client electronically. So this generates an email request to the client that gives them 3 possibilities in terms of how they can respond to that request. They can upload their exemption certificate to our portal. They can upload an exemption certificate that we create for them to the portal, or they can create a brand new one in the portal itself, okay? In terms of doing that, that process is completely automated, like I said, and that can be done not only on a per client basis, but also on a large scale basis for bulk clients. So when we look at this particular screen here, what we're seeing is the overall ability to see the health of the entire environment of your exemption certificate management component, and essentially anything that doesn't meet being valid and already available has a hyperlink to it that allows you to address that in a bulk manner. All of these bulk processes are up here, and all of those bulk processes can also be automated. So that, for example, when you have a client who has an exemption certificate that comes into the window of 30, 60, 90 days, whatever you decide, of being expired, we will automatically send them a renewal notification that they require to renew their exemption certificate within the system so that they can continue to be exempt in your transactions. So this is a full automation of the entire exemption certificate management process. And we don't have time to show it to you, but we could show you the process that your client goes through, which is very slick, very professional, leaves you looking like you're a firm that really has a grip and a handle on this in terms of how this should proceed for the client. And it makes it actually a pleasure to do business with you. So from your client's perspective, they have a much more pleasant experience than the back and forth manual process of them sending you the wrong document and then you asking for the right document and then sending the right document but with the wrong date, and this back and forth that just eats up all of the time for your staff, right? So really a time saver from every perspective of the exemption certificate management possibilities that exist in your climate, in your environment. I think that's all the time we've got.
Yes, thank you so much, Ronnie. And I know we are a little over, so thank you attendees for sticking with us. We did want to reiterate a couple things. So one moment. I want to get back to this amazing offer that Cam was speaking to earlier. Thanks, Ronnie.
Yes, absolutely. Good job, Ronnie. So our risk assessment that we have, as mentioned, was a $44,500 if you were to just pick up the phone and contact Avalara and go through the motion to see where you have risk and exposure or may have triggered nexus in different states. For those that are on right now, we have the QR code that you can use to get that for free. So zero cost, and that is through our partnership with DSD to make that possible, to bring that to you all. So if there is a concern about some of the processes you may have, I think we might have triggered nexus here, we're shipping in here, we've changed ERP systems, the business, different things. Any questions like that, it would be of value to the business to do the risk assessment. And especially if you can do it at no cost for free, when normally it's $4,500. So that is the QR code. It has a custom link to get started. So if those who are inclined, please take advantage.
Thank you so much, Kim. And now I know we're over, attendees, so I want to be respectful of your time. This is the time that we had allotted for Q&A, but obviously we've taken it up. So I do think it's prudent to maybe just collect questions via email. We will be distributing both the offers and this recording out, and you're welcome to reply to those emails or reach out to DSD Marketing, and we'll even just reach out to get your thoughts on all of the tips and tricks you've seen here. And so we will just recap quickly to end that Quadient's offer is here available to scan, and that is a $2,500 savings if booked by the end of September. And then Avalara's free sales tax risk assessment is also available to you as DSD clients. That is an incredible deal, and just I'm really grateful that Avalara brings that $4,500 value to you all. So if you don't get a chance to scan here, we will distribute these once again with the recording in the next couple of days. So just thank you all for joining us, and we appreciate those of you who are able to hang on to the end here. And thank you, Quadient and Avalara, for sharing your wisdom